Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited about today's episode because, yes, we are talking about my favorite topic in the entire world, which is, of course, marketing. But we're doing it with someone who not only is incredible at marketing and so passionate, and we've got so many cool things to talk about, but if you've ever tuned into these types of episodes and thought to yourself, well, this person's just good at marketing, they're a lifelong marketer, today's guest has such an interesting background because he actually comes from the world of finance. So we're going to take a lot of the way that his financial mind works, apply it to effective marketing strategies so that we all learn so much within the context of our own businesses. So let me tell you all about today's guest and entrepreneur. His name is Tim Hahn. Tim is the co-founder and CEO of TriLux Digital, which is a company he founded with his business partner after a serendipitous meeting through a mutual friend. Tim uses his decade and more of years of experience in business and finance to elevate the value of digital marketing services for his clients. TriLux Digital is on a mission to provide the highest quality of digital marketing services to their clients with trust and view their clients' success as their success. And also, if you are thinking to yourself, well, that's great if other people have enough time to do their marketing, Tim also balances a lot of stuff in his free time. He loves cooking, especially Korean food. He gardens. He enjoys living a healthy lifestyle. And yes, he's also a dad as he gets run ragged after his 3 children who are all under the age of 4. Today's entrepreneur is amazing in so many ways. I'm excited to learn from him, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Tim Hahn. All right, Tim, I'm so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
Heck yes, you and I have obviously been chatting leading up to today's episode, but Tim, I love the energy that you bring to all the things that you do. You're clearly passionate about these things. You've got to take us beyond the bio. Who's Tim? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so I think this all started when I was in college, and I was actually going in a more of a pre-medical route, and then I switched over to marketing and fell in love with it. But during the course of me in school and going through the process of all the classes, I met a professor that told me, hey, did you ever think about going into finance? And I never thought about that because I was okay with math, but I was a little apprehensive of like, oh, that's a lot of math, that's a lot of work, I don't know, there's a lot of smart people that's in there. But he really encouraged me to go in it, and from then on, I didn't look back. I developed a career through over 10 years of experience. I got my MBA during the middle of it, and then I was able to reach the position of CFO before I started to launch my own business thereafter. So that's kind of where my story is with how I got really interested. Now, I kind of first full circle back. After I started my own financial consulting firm and did that for a year, I started to realize that there's a lot of different needs that was beyond just finance, and that was revenue, right? So I was able to help optimize their margins, financial analyze, forecast, model, all the shebang. But one of the big questions that a lot of these clients who asked me was, how can I increase revenue? I didn't really have a good answer to that. I had theoretical answers. So from that need, I started to research different ways that I could help my clients increase their revenue stream or just brand awareness or any of that stuff. And I fell in love with digital marketing. I thought that was one avenue that was very similar to, in my opinion, finance. So then that led to a point where I met with my business partner, and we ended up merging. At the time, he had his marketing agency, and at the time, we thought that it would make more sense to create a operating LLC together, and we formed TriLux Digital, and we haven't looked back.
Yes, I love that overview, Tim, especially because the fact that you started out with finance and you led us right to the ultimate goal of marketing, which is, of course, increased revenue growth. And I love marketing because I view it as the fuel to the fire. It's the thing that adds revenue to our businesses, which leads us right off the bat. I want to start here with you, Tim, which is defining marketing, because there's so many different ways and goals for us to look at with regards to marketing. There's lead generation. There's the sales aspect. I lump sales into marketing quite frequently. Obviously, there's the classic 4 Ps of marketing, which include the product itself. That's part of what we do in terms of marketing. So there's this whole big world out there. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to increase our revenue. But Tim, when you think about the scope in the context of marketing, where does your mind go?
So where my mind goes is maybe a little bit more towards the intangibles. And what I mean by that is when I think about the internet or the web, right, it's just a vast sea of infinity. And with that, you try to quantify what makes sense to a business. That is there an ROI with this, right? And I think it's hard for people even in general to quantify what the worth of the internet is or a website or any of these things. So I think where I see a lot of ties with finance is it is an art, right? So something that's so intangible, how can you use that in a way to quantify metrics that make sense that will actually result to actual positive results as opposed to just like vanity metrics? It's like, oh, it's great, it looks good. So I think that's where my value add when I look at clients and how I can help businesses is that there is definitely a fundamental difference between showing different parts of digital marketing that is effective for businesses, but then there's also things that are intangible that you have to kind of put together and make sure that it makes sense as well too, result wise. So I think there's like a good marriage between those two.
Yeah, and speaking of the marriage between the two, one of the things that I find pop up anytime I talk to any entrepreneur about their marketing is that balance between investing in longer term things that are going to work, but also immediate gratification. Because, I mean, you come from the finance world, we need revenue, we need profitability to stay afloat. And so it is that dichotomy between making decisions for the now to create a business that is working versus decisions for the later that are going to create ultimately a sustainable business. Where I'm going with this question, Tim, is I love the fact that as a full service agency, you provide things like SEO, but you also focus on things like social media and paid advertisements. Those are different sides of the coin to me because SEO, I could start investing today and not see results for 6 months potentially. So talk to us about that balance of the short term and the long term and how it plays into a strategic marketing mix.
That is a great question. So I get that question so many times when we talk to our prospective clients because they're trying to find if there's any value in that, right? And because it's intangible, it's hard for, I think, some agencies to kind of showcase that there is worth in this, there is value in this. I would say one of the things that I use as an example to talk to people of the importance of digital marketing and different strategies, both organic and inorganic traffic or any of those strategies, is that take, for instance, starting a new diet or working out, right? For you to gain results, it's going to take some time and discipline for you to do this for weeks, months, and maybe a year, right? And at that point, that will be more of the SEO track, right? Of course, our strategy and our way that we'll do things is we'll try to do it in a faster time frame, but there's a realistic expectation that it does take a little bit of time. Whereas different strategies such as paid ads or social media or any type of lead generation thing can be a little bit more immediate. I will view those as kind of hiring a personal trainer that knows what they're doing and can really get you up to speed of that body that you want or like the weight that you want to do or the muscle mass you want to get at a certain time in a more faster pace. So ideally you would want to mix those kind of strategies together. I don't believe it's a one strategy fits all type of thing. I believe that it's different type of strategies that if you combine it together in this just synergistic approach, that it will become a much more effective marketing plan as opposed to just working out your arms or working out your legs, right? It's supposed to be a whole body thing. So that's kind of how I view it and how I tell clients of what digital marketing is and the expectations beyond that as well too.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, Tim. And I love me a good analogy. I use fitness all the time, but I love what you just alluded to, which is we have arm days when we go to the gym, but we also have leg days. You don't just want to have a completely jacked upper body and then chicken legs, which is something that we see for so many people when they don't focus on that diversified marketing mix. And that's why I've always loved that term of marketing mix. So I want to add on to that though, because my firm belief, Tim, and I'm super curious to hear your perspective on this, is that there's also still a balance on that marketing mix side, on the mix side of things, because I see too many business owners and entrepreneurs where they sign up for an account on every single platform that Gary Vee says they need to be on. And they end up with a Snapchat account, an Instagram account, and TikTok and YouTube and all these different places, but it's just not manageable. It's not manageable for them to be on all those platforms. And then most of those platforms are empty, have no engagement, have no traction. How do we find that delicate balance of being in the right places, but making sure we adequately invest our time and resources in those platforms that we choose?
That's also another great question. So how I look at that is every business is different. So every strategy we do is very custom. We always start out with a whole scale audit of their whole business, right? And you're absolutely right. It does not make sense to utilize all different avenues or pillars of digital marketing for a certain client. I think, in my opinion, there are different strategies that we'll do for attorneys and then what we'll do for dentistries, right? Or vice versa. Like, I would say what we do for private equity is going to be very different than what we do for oil and gas. So very different strategies. For us to look into what's more effective, we do a lot of competitor analysis. We look at what the landscape looks like. We look at actually their industry as well too, to make sure that, hey, are we playing in the right spaces? Is this what everybody else is doing in this? And sometimes it makes sense to trailblaze as well too, because just because everybody else is not doing it or is doing it doesn't mean you need to be that person either. And I think that's kind of the birth of entrepreneurship as well too, because you might actually find a niche that makes sense, or like a marketing flaw there, or an inefficiency that you can kind of go and help out in as well too. So that's kind of where I look at of, oh, okay, we can help out our businesses, but strategy A is going to be different than strategy B for client A and then client B as well too.
Yeah, Tim, I think that's such an important answer. And I want to go deeper there with you because listeners probably won't expect this part of the conversation because obviously we're both marketing geeks. In today's episode, we're mostly talking about marketing. But what I want to point out is the fact that marketing doesn't fix everything. And hearing you talk about the competitive landscape, hearing you talk about auditing your clients so that you have the overall picture and landscape of their business, that's important because if you've got a terrible product, for example, no amount of marketing is going to fix that. If you have horrible customer reviews and experiences, well, more marketing isn't going to fix that. So I'm curious from your perspective, what are those foundational elements of the business that you look at aside from marketing that will determine the success or failure of any marketing campaign before you even get that started?
So first and foremost, we have an intake form that we kind of get just basic questions in there. And then our auditing process is I look at their website, how that's set up. I really try to understand what their business is about. So that way I can kind of better assess, okay, where we're going with the direction of what their vision is, what they're selling, what their services are. And then after that, then I go look at their social media profiles, see if they're engaged, and if they're not engaged, then I try to go as back in as we can without having access, of course. But there's a lot of things you can do to kind of see how their optimizations are with their website, if there's any type of things there that we need to fix. And then we look at the Google business profiles, we look at some of the reviews. So we go all in depth with that along with the competitor analysis and realize, okay, this is what we believe they are going to need. Parts of marketing will work for them here, but some other parts that they're trying is not working out for them, and their competitors are not even in that space. So I realize why it's not working, or it might be working, but it might need better content, right? So that's where we kind of go from the beginning. And then as we're going deep dive, I tell my clients that yes, marketing is really, really important, but how does your business work, right? How is your business set up? What does your operational flow look like, right? And then your finances, right? Is this your only revenue stream? Is there multiple revenue streams? Are you trying to, so I'll go into a little bit more technical with finances as well too, because if you look at a business, it's not just the outward appearance that's more important. You need to also look into inward appearance and be like, okay, is there something in here that I need to know that can help with the outside part of it as well too?
Yeah, which is the fun stuff. I love how you're walking us through this step by step, because you're building that foundation and then launching those campaigns, which leads me to this next question, Tim, and that is calls to action. Because a lot of people will do a lot of marketing or what they call marketing, and they'll start making posts on social media, but it doesn't actually do anything for their business, because of course we need calls to action in business. What types of calls to actions work? Because some people take it to the extreme and they go straight for the kill every single time. They're trying to sell with every piece of content that they create. Obviously, that's one approach, whereas the other people have no calls to action at all, and there's a million different options in between. So walk us through that thought process of the right calls to actions and what types of calls to action there are.
So there's a very good delicate balance between that, and I think that we will have a separate discussion to go through all that stuff, because I think you and I could really geek out on it. I think one of the differences that I can say that we do in our business that might be different from everybody else or majority people is that we really take a data-driven approach. So whatever CTAs that we're doing or whatever campaigns that we're trying to run, what we want to do is make sure that for our clients, right, sometimes they don't see the value on what we're doing. And I think the biggest explanation from that for them that could be very helpful is anything that's data driven and metrics. So what I've seen in this industry with different strategies, right, is I try to dissect what's really important. And there are a lot of other agencies that might just get away with maybe doing basic level of digital marketing. And this is another analogy I'm gonna probably put in here. It's like a storefront, right? Some people will measure how many people are walking past the store. So if there's 100 people walking past the store, which I'll call impressions, that's great, right? And some people will just use that as a reporting metrics and show and say, hey, you got 100 people passing by your store. If people don't know too much about digital marketing, they'll think, oh yeah, that's great, right? For me, I like to take it a step further, like how digital marketing agencies should be, and say, okay, out of the 100 that came by the store, how many went inside the store? So in my opinion, I view that as an engagement, right? So let's say out of 100, 50 came inside, and now we have 50 engagements, right? And the engagements might have been because your sign was really well, or you're running some kind of promotional item, or it's just a really nice storefront that people just want to check it out. And then from then, I would say the conversion metrics will be, are the 50 people who came inside your store, how many of them purchased something, right? And those data, the last two that I just talked about, I think are one of the most important ones to kind of fine tune a business. And I think that as a digital marketer, that's one of our agency. I think that that's one of our biggest responsibility to do for our clients is that it has to make sense, right? A lot of people might be wowed by the 100 people walking past the store, but let's get into the actual impact of the finances of your business, right? 50 of them came in, and then 25 of them bought, right? So if you look at those different type of metrics, you realize that, okay, something is working. Now, with that as maybe a standard or a bar that we can use as a general reference going forward, then we'll start fine-tuning what we can do, which is like, oh, maybe we should do another promotion that does this. Or a lot of now people who came in here bought X, Y, and Z. We should use that promotional item and put that in their ad next time. So that's why it's a little bit more detailed that I know that you and I can really get into, but that's a simplistic way that I could tell the audience about how I believe digital marketing should work and what the question that you asked me is about.
Yeah, Tim, I'll tell you what, hearing you talk about tracking and metrics, now we're getting to some of my favorite stuff in the world of marketing, because marketing is also abundant with amazing tools to help us make these types of informed decisions. And I know that you personally love this, not just from the marketing side of things, but from that financial side of, hey, let's build a business that's actually profitable, that can actually grow and scale. And so with that in mind, I'm going to borrow your expertise, because listeners always have to hear me say, at a minimum, you need to have Google Analytics installed on your website. But Tim, so many entrepreneurs still have not taken that basic step. So walk us through some of your favorite tools when it comes to tracking and metrics, and even beyond that. I know that within the world of marketing, we all use so many different tools. So I'd love to hear some insights there.
Yes. So I think this is where the art part comes in as well too. So You're absolutely right, Brian. I believe that most clients should have at least the basic in-platform metric systems, such as GA4, Google Analytics 4, maybe Tag Manager, Search Console. I like to use some other third-party softwares as well too. There's like Spy Food, there's Screaming Frog, there's a SEMrush. So there's a lot of different type of things or tools out there for our disposal for analyzing data. Now, the thing about data is one part of it is getting the right type of data. The second part is interpreting the data, right? And that's where you have to be very creative in what you're doing and what you're saying and how it's impacting the business. Because yes, I can see that this went up, but what does that mean for my business, right? And then you start linking these together as a web. Some of the data points that we get, we have to actually go a little bit deeper. For instance, like let's say that they're getting a click-through rate of an ad that's going X, Y, and Z here, or their call rate, right? Let's say we're tracking calls and 100 people called. I can, if I don't go inside and dive deep into that, I could just if I was irresponsible, I could send a report and say, oh, you got 100 calls this month. You're doing a great job. But the level that we want to go there, that's a little bit more of the art based and how you need to kind of triangulate and arbitrage the data, is that out of the 100 calls that I'm seeing on my end, how many calls did you actually get on your end? And then at that point, then you're working with the business and figuring out, I'm seeing 100. They might say, hey, I only got like 50 calls, man. So that's kind of where we have to fine tune. That data can only show so much, but we have to interpret it and use it in a way that makes sense, right? So out of 100 calls, theoretically, I would hope that 100 calls actually went to them and then they picked up and, 100 great sales happens, right? But that's not the case. And that's the part where I think there's a lot of art to it. So data is one part of the analysis and the metrics, but the second part is really, really understanding how to interpret it, right? And how this could be effective for the business. And every business is different too, with different strategies. So when somebody says that there's a one size fits all strategy for X, Y, and Z, that's not true. It's almost like the same thing with my previous example of working out, right? Everybody has a different body. Everybody has a different way that they respond to different workouts and like their metabolisms and their age and like how they're able to do hypertrophy, like all the different type of variables that makes them unique. So that's why it has to be a custom report, right? Or a custom workout. So that's kind of how I have to answer that question, because data is one part, but the second part is really interpreting it and interpreting it correctly.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Tim, especially because hearing you talk about these real life examples and scenarios of, phone tracking and going through that with your clients, it makes me picture all the different types of businesses that you work with. And Tim, full transparency, I've never asked anyone this question, but hearing you talk about it today, it just brings it to mind. And I'm going to borrow something from the job market, which is something that very fortunately I can't relate to. But when I talk to my friends who have 9-to-5 jobs, they always tell me that there's this concept out there within the 9-to-5 corporate world of you should always be looking for your next job, just with the notion of, the job market's unpredictable, there's layoffs, you should always be progressing in your career. And that's the attitude that they have. Whereas when I extrapolate that and apply it to our world of entrepreneurship and small and medium-sized businesses, what I think of is how many business owners I've met that they're just like, oh, I'm not marketing right now, I've got a full client roster. I'm curious, from your perspective, should all businesses be marketing all the time? Is this something that should be happening in the background? Like, I picture kind of the SEO campaigns that you all work on with your clients, that's only ever going to benefit you in the long term. And if you've got a full client roster, cool, like good for you, but you should always be planning for that next flow of clients and leads. What's your answer to that? It's a topic that this is just the beginning of me exploring it.
I think that's a great thought exercise, and actually it's very, very relevant to, I think, not only entrepreneurs but other businesses as well too. So I'll give you my general view and then I'll give you a personal view. So generally, I think the answer to this can be both a yes or no, because it depends on what kind of business cycle you're in, where you're just in the growing phase, you're in the plateau phase, where you're just like steady Eddie, or you're kind of like weaning out phase, right? And typically when a lot of people are starting to close up shop, or they're wanting to sell their business or kind of slow down a little bit, retire, I would say that kind of client or that kind of business might not benefit too much for marketing because their end goal and their plan is not to grow anymore, it's to wean down. Now, for anybody that's wanting to grow their business, right, or get out of some kind of plateau that they have of, consistent metrics like, hey, we're only making 2% every year, but is there a way we can increase that to 5%? That is where I think marketing will be really, really helpful, because then you're trying to boost the next pipeline. You're trying to boost people coming in and your awareness. You're trying to engage in your strategies and seeing what you can do differently compared to everybody else that's doing the same or typically similar type of businesses do. So that's the general approach that I see with our business. I know it might be unpopular because there might be a lot of agencies that say, no, you need marketing, you always need marketing. But I think that it just depends on what phase you are in your business. So I'm always level-headed on where they are, because I recently met with somebody who's phasing out of the business, and we both decided that it doesn't make sense for us to work together in this capacity, because my way of trying to increase your business and your brand awareness and everything is countering your way of wanting to retire, right? So it won't match. So my personal belief is, I believe every business they'll work with marketing, and I think every business should need marketing in some sort of capacity, whether it's small or big. And the reason why I say that is because if you're selling a service or a product and you're having that as a livelihood, especially as an entrepreneur or a business owner, that's a way for you to get consistent levels of revenue each month and a year to support yourself and your family, right? Or any of your loved ones. So I think that you would have to be somewhat forward thinking, and marketing is just a way to kind of get your product out there. In the past, there used to be a thing where, have you ever put their ads in the classified ads, right? In the newspaper. And they're like, okay, we have it out here. You can find jobs there. You can find used refrigerators there. And, it was a really popular thing. But now the landscape changed. Now that kind of idea and that theory is now in the digital world, right? So it's in the internet with web-based search engines, with Google and Bing and Yahoo and whatnot. So I think that when you are stuck at that level where you believe that putting ads on a newspaper is something that you consider marketing, that's when I realized that, hey, we need to fast forward and play in the same stage as everybody else is. Now, you don't need to be in the top of the stage, but you need to be on at least the stage where everybody else is at. And we can do some minimal basic marketing that will kind of get you into the map and keep going with your business if you want to keep it steady. But no one will know you anymore if you're not in that space anymore, which is the online. So that's why my answer to that personally is that whatever phase of business that you're in, I believe that you need some sort of basic marketing, even if you're weaning out, because chances are, even if you're weaning out, there might be an opportunity that some private equity firm or some other investor or maybe another business wants to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, this business has been in 30 years. They have a great client roster. Maybe we can acquire them, right? But they would have never known that if you never marketed yourself as that person. So that's my long answer in a nutshell.
Yeah, Tim, I'll tell you what, I tease this episode as the fact that you're not just a marketing expert, but you also have that financial and business background. And I love the fact that that's on display here in today's conversation, because here you are talking about business life cycle phases and all of that. These are the important considerations. And what I really hope that listeners take away from today's episode is that marketing is an intentional and strategic decision based off of these sound business principles that you've shared with us here today. So this has been so much fun. I knew that time would fly by, but I do want to squeeze in 2 more questions, Tim, because we've got you here, and I need to talk to you about AI, because obviously within the world of marketing, it's a very hot topic. We saw OpenAI last year brought it into the mainstream with ChatGPT, and now there's obviously so many other tools there. A lot of entrepreneurs may be tricked into believing I can just have AI do everything for me these days, write all my copy, create all my campaigns, improve my offers, all of that, which is true to an extent, by the way. I personally love AI. I'm not throwing shade at AI here. I think there's a time and a place for it. So talk to me about it from your perspective as someone who's servicing clients on a literally daily basis. What's that role of AI both on, it's a double-edged sword, both on your end of the equation, but also for your clients who have real world needs with their businesses?
I love this question because a lot of people ask me about this as well too. And I have my personal take on this as well too. I think in general, AI should be a supplement, a complement to your work. I don't think it should be a replacement of what you're doing, or, oh, I'm going to just type this up and have these marketing blogs be, filled out automatically, or X, Y, and Z. I think that you lose a level of creativity if you do that, and then you also lose a level of uniqueness when you do that. And the funny thing is also, Google is smart, search engines are smart. If you actually curate a blog and you tell ChatGPT or any other type of AI software out there to do that, they know that. So in the algorithm back end, they're not going to rank your stuff number one, because they know that they're the ones who generate it, which is the AI part of it, not you. So there has to be a level of you doing it that has to be very unique from just a general canned response from like an LLM model that somebody programmed in the back end of the AI. So for me, a lot of people will ask us, do you use AI? Do you do that? And this is what I tell them. If we use AI, it's probably 5% of our work. And what that means is maybe we're trying to garner some kind of ideas. Maybe we're trying to simplify a 20-page audit that we did that needs to be down to 10 pages. But it's a way to help us efficiently do something that as a complement and a supplement to our work. But we don't have AI do our work, such as coming up with content, writing the blogs, doing our strategies of X, Y, and Z, because for us, that's what our clients are paying us for, is the value that we actually have from our experiences that we are able to showcase and provide for the clients, for their business, right? Now with AI, I also like the fact that it is helpful, but for me, I don't believe that it's going to ever replace people in general, because if you look at the past, right, a lot of different things, when a grandmaster plays chess against a supercomputer, how is it that, even adaptive AI, they lose, right? Or like a fighter jet that is somebody's flying it, a human, and their basic instincts of going around the course or any type of dangers of maneuvering obstacles, AI can do that, but you will never replace the guts and the spirits of like a human being. So there's a lot of limitations of AI, and the only reason why AI can get better is because somebody has to program the AI, right? So, and then of course now we're getting into like adaptive AI where they start self-learning in X, Y, and Z. But I think in general, it's a great tool to help humans, but I don't think that people should rely on it 100% to do work, because that actually takes away the value of what you're doing for your clients, or just doing in general for yourself as a human being.
Yeah, Tim, I appreciate that insight and perspective, because the one thing that I've been reiterating to everyone, I started my first business 16 years ago when I was 19 years old. And all the way back then, I realized my biggest differentiator is me, and injecting my personality and my energy and all of these things into it. And so people ask me today, now everybody can create content. And I keep reiterating to people that it's actually never been easier to stand out, because most people are doing exactly that. But to your point, if you let it guide you and help you brainstorm, but then you inject you into it, so few other people are doing it. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for all of us to continue to be ourselves and use that differentiator that AI can never replace. So I really appreciate those insights, Tim. I'm excited to see how you answer this last question, because it's super broad, so you can take it in any direction you want. And that is your one piece of advice or your one takeaway, knowing that we're being listened to from wantrepreneurs and entrepreneurs all over the world at all different stages of their business journeys. You are a fellow entrepreneur as well, not just a great marketer. So with that entrepreneurial hat on, what's that one thing that you hope to instill on all of our listeners today?
I know it's the same cadence that a lot of people echo when they are asked this question, but I think that there has to be a level of passion, whether it's the work that you're doing, whether it's the clients that you want to help and serve, or whether it's just in general, or like the good things that you want to do for humanity, right? So I think that there has to be a fire that you have, that you want to do something different than what you've been seeing, differently from like the corporate world or anything else that you work for. I also like that if you like your time and you like to manage your own time and try to create a life that you want to create, I would say entrepreneurship is for you as well too, because it is a great way for you to not only manage time, but work the way you want to work. the dream of like how you would have wanted to run a business and have the team that you would have wanted to work with. And that's kind of a way, in my opinion, it's a little bit more. I mean, I love this quote where, when they talk about entrepreneurship, they say that you jump off a cliff and it's like building an airplane as you're going down. And I really like that analogy because sometimes it does feel like that. Of course, you have to have a plan and you have to have passion, and that won't alone be able to help you. You have to have all these other variables that kind of help during that fall. But if you're okay with those kind of risks, if you're okay with that kind of unknowns, then you can persevere all that if you still have that passion going forward with your business or what you're trying to do for your life, right? So my biggest advice is that if you can continually keep that fire going, if you can blaze it and set it ablaze, right, you will do wonders. If you can do that, you can weather any storm, and nothing can quench that.
Boom. So beautifully articulated, Tim. I love hearing your perspective and your advice for all of our listeners on that one. And I think you and I both knew we would be short on time today because I'm pretty sure you and I could do a 30-hour live stream talking about marketing together. So it's been so much fun having you here. And fortunately for listeners, this can be the beginning of their journey with you and TriLux Digital because you've got so much good stuff out there. Your website, by the way, is beautiful. I love how accessible scheduling a call with you is straight on there. So for listeners who want to go deeper into all the great work that you're doing for your clients, drop those links on us. Where should they go from here?
Well, check out our website and or follow us on LinkedIn. We'll be doing our social media posts and stuff, strategies going forward as well too. So we'll be available. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to give us a call, set us a meeting. It's free consultation, and I'm more than happy to just educate you and provide value within that meeting, even though if you don't sign up with us. So it's always welcome.
Yes, listeners, you already know the drill. We are dropping all of Tim's links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You can find his main business website at triluxdigital.com. That's TRILUX digital.com. You can click right on through down below in the show notes. We're also linking to his personal LinkedIn because as you heard from Tim here today, is that he has a real unwavering passion for all of these things. So when he says he's open to a conversation, he means it. I can personally attest to the fact that this is someone who loves talking about all things business. So definitely check out those links down below in the show notes. Otherwise, Tim, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.